Hello once again, friends. Today is parts 3 and 4 of our fundraiser for Foundation Beyond Belief. And once again, I am super proud of the conversations we had in these segments, which is why I'm sharing them here on the podcast feed. In part 3, we have Andrew Torrez and Thomas Smith of the Opening Arguments podcast. And in part 4, we have Eli Bosnick to talk about, well, everything. As in the last episode, I want to let you know that even though we did this broadcast a few weeks ago, Foundation Beyond Belief is still collecting money for Harvey recovery efforts and is also now collecting money for Hurricane Irma recovery efforts as well. If you can, head over to fbbgive.org and send them a couple bucks to help them do what they do. Next week, we'll be back to produce. Next week's episode is actually going to be an Ask Me Anything episode about trans surgery. It'll be me and a few other trans women who have been through this experience recently. If you're trans and you're curious about the experience, it's a great time to hear from folks in various stages of recovery about the process and the recovery and the feelings and all that fun stuff as it pertains to surgery. And if you're an ally, it's a great time to learn more about the things that some of us trans women go through to get comfortable in our bodies. Any questions asked in good faith will be answered. We're among friends, so there's no such thing as TMI. If you want to ask a question, shoot an email over to thegatheistmanifesto@gmail.com. Love you, friends. Talk to you next week. And welcome back to the show. Holy crap, my friends. I got the update from Jennifer from Foundation Beyond Belief. We have raised $1,300 so far in the 2 hours that we've been doing
we don't
this
have
thing.
to see Jeremiah dancing in his Speedo.
Right.
Thank you.
And
everyone came through. I love this community.
And of course, at the end of the broadcast, the Atheist Manifesto is going to be throwing in our 200 to add to that total. So that's even more. Again, that URL is fbbgive.org to do something good for hurricane relief. Our guest this hour is the one and only, the esteemed Mr. Andrew Torrez from the Opening Arguments podcast. Welcome, sir.
Callie, hi. Thanks for having me on.
So, this
Just forget about that last hour. Here's the real star.
Hi, Ari.
Hi, Andrew. I love you.
Oh, I love you too.
Aww. We're best buddies.
So, this hour, I want to talk about presidential pardons. And,
Yeah.
right, yeah, it's going to be
everybody's favorite sheriff.
And I want to repeat, I just want to repeat what Andrew said to me when I asked him to do this with us. I was like, hey, you want to come on and hang out and talk about this, try and raise some money for Foundation Beyond Belief. And I was like, I think I want to talk about the presidential pardon of Joe Arpaio. And Andrew said to me, sure, I'll start by screaming incoherently, but my Skype.
I have been asked about this, sort of nonstop since it came down. And
oh, yeah.
I honestly don't know what to say, right? Like, other than, to repeat some of my kind of greatest hits lines of like, elections have consequences. Like, people have been rushing out to pen, and there are 2 articles out there. And quite frankly, they're pretty stupid articles, right? Like that are trying to argue that there's legal grounds to, they just aren't. Right. Like it is really, really clear. I know you're a loyal listener. So, in episode 90 of my show, I went through and talked about like the limitations on the presidential pardon power, that the president can only pardon, subject to the constitutional limitations, which is must be a federal crime, must be an offense that's already occurred. The person you pardon has to accept the pardon, which carries with it an implicit acceptance of guilt. But other than that, right, like there are no restrictions, right? Like all of these sort of really hopeful articles of like, oh, well, maybe it doesn't mean like, yes, it does, right? Like Arpaio is getting pardoned for all of his federal crimes. So now you just have to hope that the state of Arizona is going to indict him and, place that however you want to place your bets. I'm a pessimist on this one. I
was going to say, isn't he really popular in Arizona?
Yeah, he's supremely popular, and it's a Republican government pretty much from the top down. I know there's one, at least one Democrat that holds statewide office, but I don't think it's the Attorney General. So,
Yeah, I think it's another one of those things where you almost feel dirty because like stop making me defend this because
right.
like I know it's legal. That doesn't mean that I think it's a good idea.
Right. Exactly right.
Now, what happens if, so you said that the person has to accept the pardon. So what happens if Joe Arpaio would have said, I do not consent?
Yeah. Well, shockingly,
That's
this is
citizen.
Yeah,
joke.
I was going to say
opening arguments. It's a good show.
Also, it's a consent joke, which is no. I mean, if you can, there is a Supreme Court case in which somebody, this was like a 1925 case, in which the guy refused to accept the pardon and remained in prison. So you can refuse to accept the pardon. There are conditions under which that would make sense that we could talk about, but not here, obviously. It makes sense for him to accept the pardon, and he has. So
well, right, because I mean. Because he obviously doesn't think there's anything wrong with what he did, so he's probably not super skittish about saying, "Yep, yeah, like if doing this means that I admit that I did those things, like I'm cool with that."
Yeah, that's exactly.
So why might somebody not? Because I mean, I have to imagine that in most cases, accepting that pardon means that you're avoiding jail time. So like, why would somebody choose not to do that?
So there are a couple of situations, and I should point out that there is so sort of before I answer that question, there is some notion that you could. There's a few things that might chip away at that a little bit. So, for example, in 1990, Bill Clinton pardoned a dead man, right? It was at one of these two in order to clear his name. And it was the first time that that's ever happened at the presidential level. And so, that obviously, if you're dead, you can't accept a pardon.
Right. That's
so,
fair.
Why not?
Yeah,
people
well,
are people too.
And so, so there is some case law. There's strong case law. I don't want to undercut that. There is strong case law that says you have to accept the pardon, but there's that case that sort of cuts the other way, in which Bill Clinton successfully pardoned a dead guy. But that being said,
like baptizing a dead guy, is there any similarity there?
Yes, he's now Mormon. This was a like racial injustice case. It was an unquestionably good thing, and the only people that were sort of on the other side were racists, kind of truly evil people. But
now Andrew, don't be calling the other side names.
There's good people on both sides. Come on.
Because they think that people are inferior because of their skin color doesn't necessarily make them a racist. They might have some good ideas.
That's that's not a fair point. That's a stupid point, and I'm not going to. But yeah, no. I mean, one of the questions that has come up that is really not well litigated is, given that a pardon carries with it, you have to affirmatively accept it, and given that it carries with it the implication of guilt, in a civil, in order to, are there potential consequences in future civil litigation? And as far as I can tell, the best answer to that is yes, there probably are. Like, in other words, those individuals who bring civil suits against Arpaio for, these are going to be Section 1983 suits for violating their civil rights, are going to be able to introduce the pardon in evidence in the civil case. And the fact finder is going to be able to take that into account. So, if you're somebody, look, I don't know what Arpaio has in the way of resources. But I suspect it's a bit more than, kind of your average, your average person. And because of that, like, you might look at that situation and sort of make that calculation if you really thought you had a decent chance of beating the criminal conviction to say, oh, you know what, like I'm going to roll the dice so as not to, put myself in a. If it were Mitt Romney, for example, who is, clearly a multimillionaire many times over, right? Again, we have no evidence. It would shock me if Mitt Romney were committing crimes. But that's a situation.
Would it really?
Yeah, Mitt Romney.
You think he's a squeaky clean guy?
You get down on your knees right now and kiss the ground in order to have Mitt Romney be our president? I know I should. That would be like, are you kidding me? Like, yeah. No.
Yeah.
I, for one, welcome our new Mormon overlords. So.
Right. Well, and that actually brings up an interesting point. This is probably changing the subject a little bit, and that's fine because we're 10 minutes into a 50-minute discussion, so it's fine. But Andrew, you had mentioned earlier, I don't remember if it was like right after the election or if it was a little before the election, and you were kind of making the case that you thought that Mike Pence might be a better case scenario than Trump, and I was kind of pushing back on that, like God, I don't know, and when you say like wouldn't you kiss the ground to have Mitt Romney be your president, that's actually something that my position has kind of shifted on lately, and that like I just, even with as god awful terrible as Mike Pence is and how dangerous he is, I still feel like he might be just the tiniest step up. And I mean, even the other Republican candidates in the primary, like Ted Cruz, who I hate with a passion.
my good friend.
Take that back. My cat is in the room. He's getting very upset with you.
Oh, that's right. Your cat voted for Ted Cruz. I forgot.
Yeah, my cat. And he's been volunteering for the Ted Cruz 2020 campaign recently. What a good boy. Yeah.
I'm going to punch your cat. Because we do that. We do that as activists. No, but that's
He's not
something...
a Nazi. You can't punch him.
But like that's something, like, it's gotten so bad lately. I think it was the day that he was talking about nuking North Korea. At that point, I was like, you know what? I think I'm ready for Mike Pence as president. And
everybody on the Pence train. Woo-hoo! Yeah.
Just thinking to myself how terrible a place that is to be in life.
Yes, it is. But I'm there with you, and the reason that I'm there with you is because this is an area where I was wrong, right? Like, so before Trump was inaugurated, I said, look, we know what Mike Pence stands for, and Mike Pence is a very effective governor and a longtime legislator. Mike Pence as president has a greater chance of getting passed into law objectively horrible things. Okay, that's still true.
Yeah, I don't disagree with any of that, but he's not going to start a war over Twitter, most likely.
And to me, the difference, so all of that is true, and now I think that's a price that's worth paying. And for me, it's not even the fear of nuclear war, and I'm gonna talk about that in a second. To me, it is just appalling that we have a president right now who literally has no higher calling than enriching himself, his immediate family, and his cronies.
Right.
That's it. That's all Donald Trump cares about. And it's abundantly clear to anybody. Like, I don't care what your politics are. If you can't look at the situation and see that that's all Donald Trump cares about, and that and maintaining power, right?
Right.
Then I honestly don't know what to say at that point, right? Like and that is just so antithetical to. I don't want to sound, kind of flag waving and happy clappy, but like I'm an American lawyer. I live in this country. I went to law school in this country. I love this country. I appreciate our legal system, and like it was never meant. Our legal system, our system of government was designed to survive people like Mike Pence. It was not designed for somebody like Donald Trump. It was not designed for somebody who literally has no concept of public service, is 71 years old, has never done a charitable event in his life, doesn't care. It shouldn't be that way.
Yeah,
anyway,
I agree.
That's my soapbox.
No, I hear you. And the thing that sucks and the thing that scares me, honestly, about that fact is the stuff that you just said, I think is the reason that he's president. Like, that's not something that's like an outlier or like this other thing that happened as a consequence when the main reason was something else. Like, I really think that's it. Because I think there's this dynamic where people who support people like him, even people who are poor, people who are in a position to be hurt by him, like people who depend on Obamacare but are arguing against it because they don't realize that's how they have health insurance and that kind of stuff. I saw this really great Twitter thread, and the person who posted it, their name escapes me at this point. But basically they said, people who support things like that, they don't think of themselves as being poor or even, middle class or lower class. They think of themselves as like temporarily displaced millionaires. Like they see themselves as Donald Trump. They would be a millionaire, like they would be rich or well off if it weren't for black people or immigrants or gay people doing whatever black people or immigrants or gay people
regulations
in regulations and that kind of stuff. Exactly. And so, because they think, if they elect someone who does that, he's going to make it possible for them to do stuff like that. So it's sad. So like, that's literally the reason he's president.
Wait, is it? Because I thought that it was the SJWs. Is it not the SJWs
right.
who caused Trump to get elected? Is it not personally my fault?
It is still Jill Stein voters. I mean, let's not.
Oh, yeah, of course. Fuck those guys.
Mathematically speaking. But,
right.
So.
Andrew's going to lose us.
I'm sorry. It's for charity.
Right.
Turn
by another icon.
Oh.
Yeah, we have Thomas. Can you hear us? Are you there?
Yeah.
All right. Thomas Smith is here.
Woo!
Yeah.
How are you,
Now
friend?
the party's really started.
Doing okay. Just bumping stuff.
Bumping stuff. Oh God.
Video, right? Oh yeah, no.
Yeah, you can turn on video. I mean, we're doing the thing on Facebook Live.
I know I can.
We would love to see your pretty face.
Should I?
I don't know. Can you?
Yeah, I just got a really angry Facebook message from Eli, by the way. He corrected me. The post that I was talking about where Trump, people who support Trump, I said temporarily displaced millionaires. It's actually temporarily embarrassed millionaires. And Eli made sure to put it in all caps to let me know that he was very angry about me misquoting the
but now the question is, how did Eli spell embarrassed? I'm sure there was a 7 in there.
EARIS.
I can never get the right number. And I feel like I type that word. I must be typing that word more than the average person because it constantly comes up.
The question is, why are you constantly typing that word?
It's a feedback loop because once I misspell it, then I'm embarrassed for misspelling it. I just have to keep doing it over and over.
I gotcha. I thought it was just going to say because you were a terrible person, but you're not a terrible person.
Aww.
Well, I thought you were going to say that, but I was planning on pushing back, just so you know.
Okay.
Sure.
All right.
I
Why
actually
did you bring that up, Callie? This is awkward.
Well, see, Thomas, you being a little late totally screwed up the joke that I had in the intro. Because I was going to say the esteemed Andrew Torrez and the less esteemed but still pretty okay Thomas Smith.
No, it's still good. It didn't ruin
it. Well, yeah. I mean, I got to make the joke still, so it's fine.
Yeah, no, I'm not very esteemed these days, but I will say I think I am a podcast mogul. I think I think I've been a podcast mogul for years. Actually, it's just having a bunch of shitty podcasts, but it doesn't matter. Mogul status is just, it's more quantity rather than quality. So
sure. I mean, how many are you up to now?
Well, now I've got a very pedestrian 3.
Oh,
was that used to be 3 or 4 used to be the high water mark, and then those the scathing assholes they got another podcast. So it's like everybody's at 3 podcasts. Anybody who's anybody. How many are you guys up to? 5, 6?
I've got 2.
coming along.
I'm working on it. I have to work on getting paid for the podcasting thing before I can do 3. But like, I really would love to have like 6.
It's probably not a joke. That's why nobody's laughing.
It's a normal, everyday statement in our world.
Right. All right, give me just a second here. We've got a message from Noelle from Foundation Beyond Belief, and she is actually in the Houston area, and she's prepping her house currently for flooding. So oh gosh, she's saying the flooding is worse in her area now. It's up over her curb. Earlier, she told me she was shoring up her door to not let water in. But she just sent me a message on Facebook saying if we wanted her to come on, that she could. So I'm waiting to hear. She's starting to get into her. I'm like, I love you to death, and I'm raising money for your organization. But like, will you please take care of your house?
Hey, question for the crowd. We all know that Hillary and Trump were equally bad. We all know that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a given.
Since they were equally bad, maybe a tiebreaker could have been, just off the top of my head, who has better climate change policy? Just
right.
Oh, that's
off the top.
That is a tough one.
Andrew, you're something of a specialist at this. Who do you think has better climate change policy? Trump or Hillary?
Who do I think could spell climate? Other than, well, I suppose we would get like under President Trump, we're going to have the best climate, the very best, the best climate.
Well, did you see that the way he was tweeting about the flooding was like he was proud of it? It was like, greatest flood.
We got the biggest floods.
That's my God.
Really, seriously, the tone was like, they're telling me it's the best flood that's ever happened under a U.S. president.
Right. Good luck.
Oh, yeah, he sent out that tweet about how he was going to, like, deploy the forces, and I forget who it was, but this person was brilliant, like, posted on Facebook, like, even when he's talking about good things, he sounds like an evil genius right now.
Right. Yeah. Oh, God. Yeah, I'm gonna try and get Noelle on. She's got a quick window. She's showing away on Skype now. We'll see if she answers when I call here.
Trump is going to interrogate the hurricanes' families. That's how. No more soft treatment toward hurricanes, and
he's gonna build a hurricane wall.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, a big wall.
Well, actually, that's a thing. Not even joking around. It was a really sad thing to read. There was a big news thing, I think it was 1.5 years, 2 years ago, that there were a couple of newspapers that did this big thing about how devastating a major hurricane could be for the Houston area and how woefully underprepared the Houston area was. And they were like, here's a bunch of stuff you can do to fix this, and here's a bunch of actual data saying how terrible this can be. And one of those things was a wall. Like, I guess there's a seawall that they could build to help with flooding. And basically all the politicians read it and were like, nah, no big deal. And like, here we are. So yeah, it's pretty bad. I'm seeing Noelle online. I'm going to call her real quick and we'll hear from her because she is right in the thick of things here. I have all the Skype sounds turned off so you can't tell it's ringing. We're having trouble connecting. I don't know if there's cell signal issues or what. Let's hear another Trump hurricane joke because those are great.
Humor works like this.
Thomas, that was your cue.
Oh, that was my. Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Be funny. By the way, has everyone seen all the pictures of little baby Smith?
Oh my God!
Oh,
yes.
Is she not adorable?
Yeah. Speaking of our first hour.
Arguments, Smith.
Opening arguments.
Our first hour was good news, and I feel like, I mean, if being a parent was a thing that you plan for and actually are excited about, because I know not all people are, but that's pretty good stuff. Let's hear about your bean, like, because that's a fun thing that I call babies.
Wait, whoa, Callie, that's really getting sensitive information.
Right.
This is a family show. God damn it.
Right.
Oh, I think we have a Noelle.
Well, the pause. Sure, I'll come back later with that.
Yes, listen, Noelle, are you there?
Yeah, I am. I don't know how well the video will work.
Is this going to be like the Family Guy reporter Trisha talking out?
Oh my god! Yeah. Oh my god! Yeah, I'm not seeing video, Noelle, and it's okay if you can't get video. So Noelle, talk to us. You're oh, there you are. I see you. So you guys are ready for some bad stuff there, huh?
Well, I mean, ready, I don't know, but it's happening, so.
So what exactly is going on? I saw there's water up over your curb. Is that like your front yard?
Yeah. So, we were fine in my neighborhood. We're kind of out toward west of Houston, out toward Katy, which, if anyone that's watching is familiar with Houston geography. So, we haven't really had too many problems in our area, but tonight about 7:30, we've had, tornado warnings and a lot of rain, but everything's been draining okay. It hasn't been like the rest of the city, and it's just been pretty heartbreaking to watch, my friends on Facebook posting about water in their homes and having to evacuate and stuff. But tonight the constables started coming around our neighborhood telling us that there was a voluntary evacuation about 7:30. Well, there was a tornado warning right after that until 8:15, so nobody's going to go anywhere during a tornado warning.
Wow.
Oh, God.
And then they started putting people on the local news talking about the reservoirs near us. There's 2 reservoirs near us as part of the water management system of the city. And they're both full, and they both have dams that are not really that strong at this point. They've needed renovations for a while, and so they're going to be doing a controlled release of water from these reservoirs, which will impact the surrounding neighborhoods, which we are. And so that's why they were telling people to get out. Well, it turns out about 9 o'clock, people were trying to get out, and I-10 West is closed now. And I-10 East is through the city, and you've seen probably those pictures.
Oh, yeah.
Where they're completely covered. So there's really no way out at this point. And we didn't have any issues with drainage in our street until just tonight. It started to back up in the street and come up into our yard. So it's all happening really fast for us right here, and as it has, for other people around the city. So that's kind of what's going on with me.
Yeah. And that's the thing that I think a lot of people misunderstand about, hurricane preparedness and stuff like that is like, everybody's all like, well, if you don't evacuate, then like, it's your fault if something bad happens to you or something like that. And it's like, a lot of people don't understand, like, first of all, evacuation costs money. So like, if you don't have easy access to a car or gas money or enough money to like buy non-perishable food to take with you and stuff like that, like it can be a really tough thing to get out. And then obviously, if you're in an area and they're like, oh yeah, the storm's not going to really hit you. A lot of people don't understand, like the storm isn't even necessarily the worst part, because I mean, my understanding is when it hit, it actually lost strength and downgraded to a tropical storm pretty quick. So it's like, it's not necessarily the storm that's damaging. It's the fact that it's still sitting over top of the city dumping rain. So it's not like wind damage and structure collapses and stuff like that. It's flooding.
Yeah. I mean, for Houston, it is. For other communities like nearer to the coast, when the storm came ashore, yeah, it was, more typical hurricane damage winds and things like that. But for Houston, there have been winds, but it's not been hurricane level winds. It's just been, a lot of rain and a lot of wind, is stormy conditions that just are not stopping. And they're hardly giving us a break either. At the beginning, when it was first starting to reach us, we would get a wave, and then it would stop. And then we would get another wave of rain, and then it would stop. But now we're right in the middle of it, and it's just, on and on and on and on, and it's not stopping.
Well, and the Houston area has gotten a significantly higher amount of rain than usual already this year, right? So
Yes.
That just compounds everything and makes it even worse.
Yes, that's true, because the ground was already saturated. So, I went out to look at our local kind of it's not as big as a bayou, like some that people may have seen on TV, but it's kind of like a drainage ditch, but a big drainage ditch, maybe as big as a 2-lane road. And, you know, the ground out there, I think we went yesterday morning. I don't even know what day it is anymore.
Right.
And we went and looked at it, and the ground was puddled. You know, there was nowhere for the water to go.
Mm-hmm.
So,
God,
yeah.
That's freaking scary. Well, listen, we're wishing you all the best. I know that doesn't do, that wishes don't do a lot, but
thoughts and prayers.
Yeah. Please stay safe. We're sending you all our love. Keep us updated when you can. I know, you know, if you lose power, you lose cell phone signal. It's hard to do that. But I've been following your updates and stuff, just saying, and there's, it's not so much immediate stuff, but there's just lots of bad stuff to come, I think, with flooding damage and that kind of stuff. So we're doing everything we can to at least help after the fact.
Yeah. You know, I just want to say that for me specifically, even if we get water in our house, you know, we have a second story to go to. You know, we are, you know, middle class, I guess. So, you know, we have money saved, and, you know, we can hold out, you know, in with a living in a hotel or whatever we need to do. You know, who we really want to help with this drive for Foundation Beyond Belief is the people that don't have those resources. They don't have money to go to a hotel. They're staying in a shelter. They've lost everything. They have nowhere to stay once the shelters close. While their home gets repaired, they don't have money to repair their home because they don't have savings. You know, my family will be fine. We will be safe. You know, our second story is not going to get water at all. It's those people who, you know, who don't have those resources, and those people who maybe have a disability or maybe have a young baby or whatever. Those are the ones who, you know, we're really trying to help here.
That's awesome. Well, I love you, and I love your organization. I love what y'all are doing. And I am super, super happy that we're able to do this to help in any small way we can. So, we appreciate you. We love you. We're wishing you the best. We hope everything turns out okay for you.
Thank you. And thank you to everyone who's donated and who's thinking about donating and who's spreading the word. I really appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. Really, truly.
All right. Take care. Stay safe. Keep us updated. Okay.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
All right, back to hurricane jokes. Let's hear it, Thomas.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
I'm just saying, like, I don't know that I'd be that calm.
No.
Like, even if I knew I had insurance and I know I don't know, I would just be freaking out. That stuff scares me. I'm kind of a baby, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I was in a flood. I don't know if you saw. It was a little over a year ago this time. It was August 1st. My brother-in-law's birthday in Ellicott City, Maryland. I don't know if you saw any of the reports on it. And it was, so we were at a bar that was on the corner of Main Street, Ellicott City, which sits at the bottom of a hill, and it was raining and raining and raining and just, you know, pouring. And so I took a little snapshot out the window and posted on Facebook, like, oh, looks like we're going to be stuck here at the bar for a couple of hours. You know, how terrible that is for us. Right. And literally within 15 minutes, because it was like an inch of standing water on the road. And then 15 minutes later, there was 3 inches, which is enough to come up over the curb and to start coming into the buildings. And it went from 3 inches to 3 feet in like 20 minutes, right? Like it just snowballed such that we were fortunate. The bar was a 3-story. So we went up, everybody got evacuated up to the 2nd floor, and we're hanging out watching this out the window. And there were literally like rip curls at the bottom of the road where cars were being just brushed down the street. And, you know, tossed and turned. It was something like hundreds of cars were deposited into the Potomac. And again, I mean, that wasn't a hurricane. That was just rain, right? And all of a sudden, like, people are looking around going, I don't know, right? And that was just, how am I going to get home, right? From this bar. That was not, you know, this is going to be, my house, everything I've ever owned. So,
well, yeah, and that puts things in perspective because, I mean, you're talking about 3 inches of rain and then like a couple of feet, and like that's all really scary. And then like I keep thinking about this picture that's been going around Facebook that's like, yeah, this street sign is 17 feet tall and it's almost completely underwater.
Yeah.
Like, that's terrifying. And I've seen, I've seen posts from people who weren't able to leave for one reason or another, or didn't think they'd have to, and it's scary stuff. Like, I was talking earlier about that picture of the folks waiting to be evacuated from the nursing home, and they're sitting there in waist deep water. I mean, one lady is sitting there knitting, and it's like, I mean, what else are you gonna do?
Right. Right.
Thankfully, there was an update to the story that I think they finally did get rescued. But I just, that whole thing, it gives me anxiety because I've figured out over the last month that I'm not necessarily the resilient person that I thought I was, just from being such a whiny baby over like surgery pain and like I've had to lay on the couch for 2 weeks and I'm depressed.
Oh man. So that is the funniest thing about having a baby. Because we were in labor for all night. Everything in conversation for me is going to be about the baby. I'm just bringing it back in.
That's great.
It's the Thomas's baby show. Yeah.
I'm fine with it.
Yeah, I just had. No, but going with what you said, I mean, my poor wife, she's in labor, which is about the toughest thing there can be. And then like when, we're up all night, my back starts hurting. I'm like, fuck, my back. I'm like, I don't know, I can't really say anything. Like, no amount of what I'm going through matters because my wife's in labor. I'm just like, gosh, my back sure hurts right now.
I am so glad you said that because Terry stayed overnight and she was only in labor for like, Christ, thank God she's asleep, and didn't hear me say only in labor for 6 hours.
Right.
But by comparison to Lydia, who was in labor for like 900 hours. But that night I slept on the floor, next to her in the hospital room. And I had that exact same thing, like waking up the next day going like, my back hurts and no one's going to give me any sympathy whatsoever.
Yeah, you can't, there's no complaining about anything, and with good reason. Like I shouldn't, but there's going to be a while before I can complain about anything. Which is sad.
Think about what that poor baby went through, getting shoved head first out of a vag. That couldn't have been a good experience.
Right.
It got yanked. It was quite alarming.
God.
Birth is not a beautiful experience. It's a
miracle of childbirth.
Anyway, flood relief, everybody.
Right, yeah. FBBGive.org. Let's remember FBBGive.org.
The thing about water is it's crucial to our existence. It's the most important thing until there's like a quarter inch too much of it. And then our entire society is over. It's amazing.
There's one of my friends, I'm forgetting who it is at this point, but like everybody has been posting those like post your controversial opinion and the only comments you're allowed to make are agree or disagree. And there was someone that was like, post your most uncontroversial opinion. And speaking of, my most uncontroversial opinion is that hydration is necessary for life. So
a friend of mine did that exact same thing. Was like, I want the mildest of mild takes right here. And I think mine was Scarlett Johansson, kind of easy on the eyes. But
yeah, I think you're right about that. Oh God, hang on. Okay, since we were talking about baby stories, I actually have a friend of mine who, and this is kind of gone off the rails at this point, but it's fine.
The only one with baby. Sorry, I'm the only one with a baby.
I don't have one, so no, you're fine.
I have a cat. That's pretty close.
I guess his wife had to have a C-section, and he was in the room with her, and they put that curtain up so that like nobody can see what's going on. And he told me that he made the mistake of looking on the other side of the curtain.
Oh, no.
Oh my gosh, Thomas, did you have to watch the video? Like, I had to as one of my birthing classes. Like, I had to watch the video of a C-section being performed, and it was like the
cursing stream. I didn't even ask.
I'm sorry.
Is this a cursing stream? Am I going to get censored?
Oh,
I just said
you're fine.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Go on.
So did you have to watch that video too?
No, my answer was fuck that.
I'm telling you, that was like the most horrifying thing I've ever
I didn't know this. I certainly didn't know this, and maybe some people listening won't know this. A C-section, you think it's just like, oh, they cut a little thing and then the baby just slips out. No, they cut a hole in a woman and then they take her whole body and take it out of her. Like it's entirely like your organs, your heart. I think your legs go inside out. They the woman's entire body inside out, and then like
they
that from there
they get scary skeleton song,
and then they have to exactly. They have to stuff her all back in. It's gruesome. I had no idea. I don't want any part of it.
Yeah, and that's what
like a Bill Cosby joke. Be honest, you stole that from Bill Cosby.
Oh, let's not do that. Let's not go there.
I'm just talking about his comedy, okay? His comedy is not disputed as far as I know.
But yeah, that's what my friend was saying. He was like, I had no idea how that really worked, and I regretted it.
Yeah.
And I'll regret it for the rest of my life.
Intelligent design, folks.
Yeah.
Testicles on the outside of the body, childhood diseases, and C-sections.
Oh.
Man, speaking of Bill Cosby, the worst now is when I see old clips of the Cosby Show, and every time it's, oh, I love the Cosby. Oh, it's the Cosby. I'm always excited because I love the Cosby Show. It's great, but then you get like a second of happiness, and then you're like, well, the whole time he was doing those things. So never mind.
Well, we've got about 10 more minutes here.
I feel the same way when the Naked Gun movie's gone.
Oh, with OJ.
That was it. We can go. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
OJ.
Right. Yeah.
He was funny and so good, and then you're like, oh God, I'm watching. Yeah, watching. Oh shit.
Is Andrew going to the Matrix for everyone or just me?
No, he's definitely going through the Matrix.
Okay, or is exiting the Matrix? I guess,
exiting the Matrix. Yeah, that's actually.
He took the red pill. He's been red pill.
Right.
Heard it here first.
Is that the glorious one? Is that the one you're supposed to take?
Yeah, that's when you find out when you're red pilled, you find out that women really want like an asshole of a guy, and they want someone who can verbally abuse them. Like that's red pilling.
Right.
They don't tell you that in school.
Yeah, and I still think it's funny that a movie made by two people who turned out to be trans women, who later insinuated that like the movie is kind of in some ways meant to be seen through that lens, was used for that metaphor. Like that's
I hadn't realized that. That's awesome.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing, like because when they came out as trans, everybody was saying that, and I'm like, oh, that doesn't necessarily mean that they meant it that way. I mean, it could be the way that everybody took it initially, which was just like, things aren't what they seem. But, they came out and they weren't exactly like, oh, this is a literal metaphor for, being trans. But they were like, that thought was in there, And so, yeah, that's really funny to me. And
am I the only one? Like, can't some movies just be literal? Does it everything have to be a metaphor? I mean, I'm cool with metaphors, but like that one was just a cool robot AI movie, right? No? Is that not allowed? Because there's so many philosophical issues at stake anyway. Like it's already an interesting enough premise. But yeah, maybe that's just me.
No, I mean, like part of me is with you a lot of times because, like, for example, I see a lot of people talking about how deep the philosophy in Rick and Morty is, and like I watch Rick and Morty and I think like it's really funny, it's really smart, it's clever. And there's like some nihilism and some cynicism happening, but I don't really see anything super deep in it. But apparently a lot of people...
And there goes our Patreon money. Yeah. Thanks, Callie.
I do this from time to time on Coffee Shoeshine where I start talking about something and I realize I've lost every listener. Same with opening arguments. I'm a bit... Don't tell Andrew, but I'm a major cost to our show just because I'll express something like that and then everybody will hate me for the rest of time. But...
Yeah, well, see, here's my thing is, like, I don't know if you've heard me talk about this before.
Fucking Big Bang Theory. Fuck that show.
Yeah.
Nobody likes that show. That's a popular opinion.
Yeah, to be honest, not a fan.
Also,
like,
nobody likes that most popular show.
Can I just put my plug for...
Andrew.
Andrew, are you still alive?
This is, if anybody's Arrested Development fan, The scene where I'm just talking over Andrew because he's going through the Matrix for me.
Yeah, it's fine.
Are you guys Arrested Development fans?
Yes.
There's that scene where George Senior's in prison and he has like the surrogate, and then he starts lagging and then his wife just turns him off. It's kind of like that. I just call out to that.
Gotcha.
Anyway, Andrew, back.
Well, I was gonna say I have my own my own sort of personal problematic fave story. Like anybody who knows me knows that Star Trek is pretty much my life. And apparently William Shatner is terrible. And I didn't know this until recently. You? Like somebody put up a meme that was like, I think the debate between who's better between Kirk and Picard has settled. And there was the meme of Patrick Stewart promoting Amnesty International and advocating for the cause of raising money to help women get out of abusive relationships and that kind of stuff. And then William Shatner is like, leave it to the SJWs to find bad stuff where there is no bad stuff. And it's like, I think...
Hey, I got one of those unpopular opinions that, I could... William Shatner, not a bad actor.
To be honest, I don't think he is either.
Not a bad actor.
No.
He's just got an interesting diction. That's all. He's not bad.
And the totality of my exposure to Shatner is his spoken word albums where he does covers of songs and just speaks the lyrics dramatically.
Oh my God, it's so
that
good.
Is one of my favorite things.
It's so good.
I didn't
Mama.
Musician.
Actually, so there were two great moments for that with me. One was hearing it, and two was realizing that he wasn't trying to be funny.
Yeah.
It's the most he was doing that seriously.
Thing.
And I was like, because I saw the video of him doing Rocket Man, back in the 80s. And I was like, yeah.
I think it's going to be. Oh.
And so my first thought was like, oh, he's trying to be funny because he's the guy who talks like this.
Fun. Yeah, if he did that, it would be hilarious.
Right. And then
but it was intentional.
Right. And then I think it was in the early 2000s, he put out an entire album. And there were some covers and there were some originals, and I was like, oh no, oh my God, he's for real. This is serious. But then I listened to it and I think
leave it to the SJWs.
Ground control to Major Tom.
Yeah. I feel like I should hate this, but honestly, it's kind of fun to listen to.
I had a friend who would always put that on in the car, and I couldn't tell if it was if he was joking or not. It's like, all right, either way, I don't need to either you really like this or you're just doing it for a laugh. Either way, I don't care. I don't want to hear it anymore.
Right.
Always have it on. All right, okay.
There was a sound guy that used to do that with music. There's the mid-sized venue around here is called Bogart's, and the sound guy was the biggest smartass I've ever met in my life. And so what he would do is this was during the time early 20s, late teens, when I was listening to nothing but metal, and I was one of the cool kids, if it's not super heavy and there's not screaming, it's pussy shit and I don't want to hear any of it. I was in that mode in my life. And so this guy, whenever there were metal shows at Bogart's, he would play smooth jazz in between bands. And over the years, I grew to appreciate it. As I grew out of my music essentialism, I grew to realize everybody in the crowd is so pissed off, and this is actually great. I love that he's trolling people with music. It's just
I went to a Radical Face concert. She said several months back, and the music beforehand was the soundtrack for what's the Lynch show from the the David Lynch show from the 90s. Is that his name? Yeah.
Twin Peaks?
The one that Twin Peaks,
Twin
yeah.
Peaks.
The music between or before the band came out was the entire Twin Peaks soundtrack. 45 minutes. I thought
that was the opening act, soon. Huh?
Yeah, because it was boom, boom, and I was like, oh, this is funny. Then they'll come out, and it just went on forever. I was
you thought it was the intro, the band's intro?
Well, it was, but they played the whole fucking album as an intro. It was the entire soundtrack. I couldn't believe it, but it was still cool that it was that was a half hour of weird 80s, early 90s synth stuff.
Can I just say, Thomas, that it doesn't surprise me that you're the kind of guy who listens to a band called Radical Face. That just doesn't surprise me.
Am I still in the Matrix, or can I get in my story?
No,
we hear you, Andrew. Let's let Andrew have his turn, because we got 2 minutes left.
Oh, well, I was just going to say my first concert that I ever went to.
We have.
All right. Well, never mind. Then you don't get to hear about the greatest mashup
I don't get to
ever.
Hear the Herman's Hermits concert. That was your first concert.
Hey, I like those guys.
Yeah,
you too.
It was Robert Plant solo, right? And I was 13, and I was there. It was an outdoor venue, and I was there with 20,000 like stoned Led Zeppelin fans. And the opening act was an 80s pop metal singer who decided midway through the tour that he was going to start doing kind of adult contemporary style stuff. You might have heard of him, Michael Bolton. So I'm not kidding. Michael Bolton was the opening act for Robert Plant. And so he comes out and he starts doing one of these songs, and like there's sort of general discontent, and like people are booing and like, you suck, and all of that sort of stuff. And then he does a second song, right? And the boos are getting louder. And then he starts to do his third song. And he's like, now I'd like to perform a song that I wrote for my friend Cher. And like the crowd just screams. They throw down the lights. And then the PA comes on and says, due to crowd unruliness, there will be no opening act. And a huge cheer goes up from the entire stadium.
Oh, my God. That's incredible.
And we sat in silence for 50 minutes until Robert Plant came on. So,
wow. God. Well, that took us right up to time. Thomas and Andrew, thank you both very much for joining us. I love where this conversation went. I'm a big fan. So if you both wouldn't mind, shoot out the fundraising link on your social media so we can get some dollars for Foundation Beyond Belief, and we will be back in about 10 minutes. Take care, everybody.
Absolutely, it's a great thing you're doing, and thanks for having us on.
Agreed. Thank you very much.
This is pretty cool, my friends. We have done some good stuff. Let's see. I got an update from Jennifer just a minute ago. We are at $2,140 right now. We have broke $2,000. The original goal was $1,000, so this is awesome. You are all amazing. We're doing good stuff, friends. And then of course, we are going to add our 200 at the end of the broadcast. So this will be the last hour. So if you're listening and you haven't yet, head over to fbbgive.org. Anything helps. $5, $10, $20, $50, $3,000, $3 million. So anything you can do, it all helps, and it's all going to go to a good cause. So we are really, really excited to be where we're at. And our guest for this last hour is the one and only Eli Bosnick. Hello, friend.
Nope.
I see you on the call.
Nope.
Are you still muted?
Well, let's have a sing-along while we wait for Eli.
I'm back.
Ready?
There he is.
Never mind. We're doing a sing-along anyway.
I was just going to say...
God is an awesome God. He reigns.
I was just going to say, let's all just stare at his Skype profile picture and make fun of his terrible hat.
Isn't that amazing? I only use the nozzliest pictures I have ever used throughout my life.
Nozzliest?
Yeah, the ones that make me the most of a nozzle. The ones that I am the most.
Oh, gotcha.
In. And this was the one fedora I ever bought. And I loved it so much. I loved this fedora, and I made my ex-girlfriend. That is not a spontaneous picture. My ex-girlfriend take that picture, and I thought it looked so cool. So if it's not the double card fan picture that I usually use as my profile picture,
which is also a great picture.
Which is also. That was my OkCupid profile picture. 0 messages. No
ladies.
Shocked. If you're not watching on video, I'm displaying my shocked face right now.
It was my everything. Well, I could turn on video. I'm just not a very attractive person.
I mean, I would love to see your beautiful. There he is. Aw.
Hey everyone.
Do the face. There we go. That's a bonus for
the whole time.
The bonus for the people watching on Facebook. You got to see the Eli face.
Exactly.
Yeah, I want to see you talk while keeping that face. That's what I want to see.
Wouldn't it be amazing if my voice just sailed out perfectly clearly of my open mouth? Just.
I think
Kelly.
If that.
Okay, I have a proposal here.
All right.
You have to agree to this, Eli, because of course consent is important. If we reach $5,000, will you lick the hurricane?
Wow. Okay. So wait, what is the current amount?
Right now we are at. Let me look it up again. I think it was just over $2,100.
If we reach $5,000, I will lick the hurricane. Absolutely. Texas tonight, and I will lick the hurricane.
On which part of itself will you lick the hurricane?
The eye.
Oh, okay. That's true. It does have an eye.
An eye?
Oh, God. It took me a second. That's how slow I am. That's good.
If you were to ask me what my favorite part of this live broadcast has been, watching it from a bus and then from an Uber and now here, it has been Celeste's video game journey in the back. There have been ups and downs. There have been wins and losses.
Oh.
Victories and defeats.
Yeah,
way.
What is she playing back there, by the way?
I think she's playing Final Fantasy.
Yeah, it's like Final Fantasy to me.
Yeah, so anybody who's listening on Spreaker instead of watching via video, my beautiful fiance Celeste is sitting back at her desk, very diligently being quiet as to not interrupt the broadcast, playing her game. Yeah, well, and here's the thing. We had a conversation about this when I told her, I was like, hey, I had this idea to put together this massive, 4-hour thing with a whole bunch of people, and we're going to do, yeah, she's hearing me talk now. Because when we moved to this new place, the problem that we had at our old apartment is our desks were both in the same room. So if she's playing her game while I'm recording the podcast, I have to be like, you can't click your keyboard really loud. You can't click your mouse really loud. You can't game chat with your friends because I have a really good mic and it's really sensitive. And that was always she's never had a problem with it. She's always yeah, it's fine because, it's a partnership. It's what we do. When we moved to our new place, I purposely put my recording setup in our bedroom to avoid that. But, because I'm recovering from surgery, I'm I'm not comfortable enough sitting in my office chair yet. So I'm just going to move my setup out to the couch. And she's like, so what the hell am I going to do for 4 hours? We were trying to avoid this the whole time.
That's why I am literally sitting on the bedroom floor right now while Zach is in the living room watching the X-Files.
The things and places, if you ever admired podcasters, just have them go around and tell you the stories of where they record, and you'll be like, oh, this is the saddest job in the world. All right, I'm not listening to these anymore. Because, I used to record out in the living room because it was significantly better. At quality and everything. And then we were like, we could probably soundproof the bedroom. So and also Anna didn't like being trapped 7 hours a week in our bedroom with a dog who couldn't make noise. It was getting a little prison-y. So I was like, look, so while she was gone one day, I swapped everything, I put it in. But now I'm trapped in the bedroom 7 hours a day, surrounded by egg crate foam. You see this foam behind me? People who think you want to start a podcast? That's your whole life. Every joke you'll ever deliver is delivered to a piece of foam.
Yeah,
it never laughs.
I'm so bummed that I don't have this picture anymore. But when I very first started doing the Atheist Manifesto, I was still living in my grandma's basement, which we can make all the jokes we want about that. It's fine. But
okay, let me start. I feel like you segued me in weirdly, but here we go. Okay, so, I wasn't ready to make fun of you, but here we go. Oh, roasting Callie. All right, here we go. Starting out in your grandmother's basement. Oh, no, I'm kidding.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But it was like a $20 office chair, a tray table, that like one of those dinner tray tables. And I had this really cheap mic that I had left over from when I was running recording studios. And I went and I bought one of those really short desktop stands, and then realized that it wasn't tall enough. So I found a cardboard box to set the stand on top of. And I had this old monitor that tilted to the side, and I could never get it to go straight. 'Cause straight's a thing I do badly, apparently. Yep. And I mean, it was just in my grandma's basement is a mess, because my grandma is on the ground floor and the upstairs of her house, she's like the cleanest person ever. Her basement, you would think she's a hoarder. And that's
where
like,
all the mess
was,
goes.
yeah. And that was my room for about a year. So it was just like, and I had exactly the same thing. Like, oh my God, the glamorous podcasting life that I'm getting myself into. I mean, and this is where the show started, right? Like I think
that's where the magic
the first probably 15 or 20 episodes we did were recorded with that setup. And it was just like, so this was I feel like it was the equivalent of the really awful practice space that all the bands are in. Like,
right,
you set up and practice in a
closet.
Garage.
It's the band garage. Yeah.
Right. And I feel like
in my dad's garage. Now we're in Madison Square Garden.
Right.
And I could make a compilation of whispery, I'm actually still recording fights with significant others. Oh my gosh. Okay. Probably another
me
20
glaring minutes. Across the room, making
probably
threatening gestures.
Probably another 20. About 20. Another 20. Doesn't matter. If I start an hour-long episode and she comes in, I'm like, about 20. Probably another 20. That's just the general lie we tell our significant others, because they're like, I can sit in the other room for 20 minutes. Comes back in 40 minutes later, about another 20 minutes. She's like, all right, now surely another 20 minutes.
Yeah. Well, my favorite is like, I normally, under normal circumstances, I try to keep the show to about an hour. Like, I'm not one to like, oh, the conversation's got to stop because I got to hit this arbitrary like time deadline. But I try to keep it right around there. And sometimes it just doesn't work that way. Like, the conversation's so good, I can't stop. And the flexibility of podcasting, it's like, if it needs to be an hour and 20 minutes, an hour and 30 minutes, it's fine. But I'll start to get those looks. Like, when it hits an hour, she's just kind of looking over. And it's like, and, you know, because... And I don't mean to imply that Celeste is anything other than 100% supportive of everything that I do. She puts up with a lot of shit from me, and being gone all the time, and like being unavailable for recording all of the time, and like spending money on podcast stuff and stuff. Like, she puts up with a lot. She's amazing. But you know, it's like, you told me this was going to be an hour. What are you still doing? Like, we were supposed to spend time together tonight.
And they just can't eat dinner because you're near the kitchen. It's just like, no dinner for you. Sorry.
All right, can't eat dinner.
Right. Well, one of the things that happened is Celeste had some food in the oven, and it took a little longer than we thought to cook, and was like, I could hear in the background her opening the oven door, and I'm just like, and I'm like, I have to be accommodating too, right? Because like, I took over our living room to do this. This is not how this is supposed to work. But I'm still like twitching, like, shh, stop it.
Come on now, please. And I have never taken my job more seriously than when my wife needs a T-shirt in the room. I'm just like, excuse me, I'm a professional podcast. I'll dox Heath every other episode, and then Anna's like, I need to wear a shirt. The mailman's here. You've been in there for 4 hours talking about Dash Avatar, and I'm like, I'm a professional. All right, I am the Scorsese of podcasters right now.
Do you want us to have an income?
Can you take my radio internet show Super Serial right now? Can you be super serial about my internet radio show? Because I have never been more serial.
God.
Speaking of things that I had for dinner.
That graduate student life.
Woo!
Woo! I am doing...
I had literally the, what store was it? It's either Safeway or Walmart knockoff Oreo O's for dinner.
Quality.
And it's great because I'm an adult and I can eat that.
I'm doing this freshman orientation thing at NYU that I've done the last 2 years in a row for the drama kids. And they come in and I'm like, hey, I'm an alumni and I don't wait tables for a living, which is, you know, yeah, here, come on in, kids. Here you go. Don't eat bread and you won't look like this. Come on, kids. And so, you know, every year there's some character actor-y looking kid when I say I'm an alumni who's like, oh, right? Because the first day at NYU, everyone's just like, shh. Yeah, I'm actually half Vila. That's a real thing from Harry Potter. If you touch me, you will light on fire. And I always lock eyes with that kid, and I'm like, yeah, buddy, this is always funny. This is always funny. So I'm doing the orientation, and they move in today. And then over the next week, I do these little orientation groups with them. And it's phenomenal to look at, like, college freshmen going through that first experience and to be able to be like, hey, how's it going? Like, here's how the subway, and it also, a lot of them are coming from go fuck yourself, Maine. So they have to get on a subway for the first time. And they're like, question, if I get stabbed, I keep the knife in, right? Because it'll bleed out. Otherwise, I've heard that anything above 40th Street is Harlem. And that is where y'all keep your prisoners. You got a big prison section like Magneto and Geneva. Is that what Uptown is? And I'm like, no, it's fine. That's enough.
Oh God, yeah. What I love that, because like in the 3 segments before this, I thought like there's stuff we got to talk about, but I figured like I just
you were gonna be here, and I was like, all right, we'll get the bullshit out of the way. I got Matt Dillahunty and Seth Andrews to talk about drama in the atheist community. Let's see what the movie guy thinks. Eli, who are you mad at this week?
It's a good question. Who are you mad at this week?
Twitter argument.
Yeah, who are you mad at this week?
Buses. I'm mad at buses. A woman behind. I took a bus. So, little backstory here as to why I didn't get to announce this earlier. I took a bus from my hometown of Binghamton today up until the moment I sat down at this computer. And there was a woman about 3 rows behind me, and I hope she's listening. She's not. And she sang to herself.
Oh, my God.
Out loud for a solid hour. And there's not a jury in the world that would have convicted me of murder as long as they'd all been on that bus. Right. And here's the crazy thing. At one point, a woman, very sweet little old lady, turns around and she goes, I'm sorry, do you mind? Like, not like, do you mind, but like, I'm sorry, I'm going to die very soon, and my last memory will be of your terrible singing. And she goes, I'm sorry, do you mind? And the woman goes, what? Because she's got these big headphones on, and she's like, you're singing, dear. We can all hear you singing. And
the
she goes,
vibrations are affecting my heart rhythm.
She just goes, ugh. And then turns like a degree, and it's like, that's what I'm mad at this week. A fundraise against that woman.
All right.
Yeah, actually,
$5,000. Eli will lick that woman.
I think it was.
I did lick that woman.
I can't remember if it was on the plane too.
What's the link? What's the link?
It's fbbgive.org.
fbbgive.org. And I want to have the best hour because that's a thing. So I want to have. What's the best hour so far?
You know what? I haven't done that math because I'm running the broadcast.
I want to
hosting the broadcast and keeping track of that at the same time.
So much that it's obvious that I had the best hour. And then we're not going to do any of those last minute things where like a rich Jewish guy who's not Jewish anymore comes in and he's like, I gave $1 million during that. No. I want the best hour. None of that.
Well, I will say, Rebecca Vitzman.
Give $1 million at the end here. Don't do it. That's my goal. Do not give it. I would rather this charity suffer than this be a weighted exercise.
You can be on top.
Exactly.
I will say, Rebecca Vitzman from Foundation Beyond Belief sent me a message on Facebook and told me that the people at the Ask an Atheist post show are passing a laptop for donation. So I guess they're doing a live show, maybe, with people there, and they're passing out a laptop. So that's awesome.
Yeah, winning by coincidence.
Yeah, huge shout out to the Ask an Atheist.
Thomas Andrew, blam! That's for you, Thomas and Andrew.
Yeah, your shirt that you got unironically matching with Anna. That was a cute post.
My wife and I now have 2 matching shirts. It's going well. We're really figuring out this couple thing. You're into marriage.
So your marriage is going well. I think that's an indicator of that.
Shared interests.
So far, yeah.
That's good stuff.
The foundation shirts.
Yeah.
The shirt now, this is over tomorrow.
Yeah, I actually had, speaking of people singing out loud, there was somebody, it wasn't singing out loud. I think it was on the plane either to or from ReasonCon. But we get on the plane and we sit down and there's somebody playing music like through the speaker on their phone. And like, and you know, I see like people skateboarding or people walking around playing like whatever music they're listening to, just super loud. Like, your phone comes with earbuds. You're doing this on purpose. You're a douche.
Oh, I turn on the audiobook and I blast it. And if they're singing along, I'm reading along. Harry Potter and the Order of the... I love this book. That's why it's okay, because I'm a fan of this. Someday I want to write books, so if I do it along with the book, I'll be a great booker.
Yeah.
Booker.
and somebody turned, because it was like 6 rows behind me, so I wasn't in a position to communicate with the guy directly, but I actually overheard somebody like, "Hey man, headphones?" And the guy was like, and the guy was like, "Fucking whatever, man," and put headphones on. Like
the whatever, here's the thing.
Boy.
Everyone's had the moment where they don't realize the sound for Candy Crush is on. We've all had that moment, right?
That's fair.
And the proper reaction,
or something else,
the
maybe
good
not as innocent
Christian reaction is this, right? You look, you get shot in the heart. Just you do this, and then you furiously smash at your phone, and for some reason it gets louder, and everyone goes, "All right, we've all been there. We've all forgotten that the sound for Candy Crush is still on."
Yeah, well, the moment that I've had that, I'm sure this has happened to everyone too, but I wake up in the morning, and sometimes do what people do in the morning when you wake up. There's masturbate, and
you masturbate while pooping? That's kind of weird.
No.
I'm all of a sudden really into kink shaming.
Yeah, weird kink shame.
So I'm watching porn on my phone, in the morning, and I hit the home button, get out of bed, get ready, go to work, and of course at some point at work, I pull out my phone, and Chrome opens up on my phone, and the video starts playing again. In the call center where I'm surrounded by dozens of people.
Not just that, but so I don't do the incognito searches.
Oh, I don't
trust them.
I don't care.
So all of my most visited websites, when someone's like, "No, he was not in that movie," I'm like, "I'm telling you, Google it," and they'll be like, "Oh, I'm gonna go." "Oh, Eli, you should be in jail. You should be in a jail." And all of my friends do the same thing, and they go like, "Why don't you just safe search or anything that I wouldn't see this?"
Because I don't give a fuck.
It's not that, actually. I can't. I'll tell you what it is. In a couple of years, they're going to come out with the really good fuck robot. They're not there yet, but in a couple of years, they're going to come out with the awesome fuck robot. And they're going to be like, "Yeah, we just check your internet history, and the fuck robot will be into all the stuff you're into." And all the safe searchers are going to be like, "Oh, well, can I just have a conversation with the robot?" "No, you won't." Meanwhile, my robot already in the chicken suit, just like, "Oh, hello." And I'm like, "Yeah, my robot's advanced. I'm going to be in the beta program for all the robots." They're going to be like, "Hey, man, you never even used autocorrect." Either your robot
you have
is
such
turned
forethought.
Yeah, well, it's contributing to the future, right? Because we're talking about AI, is what we're talking about, and so Eli is graciously contributing his personal data to the improvement of our AI. Yeah, it's for science.
That's the heart of it.
Like, I don't even know where to go from there. Like, we got to keep a conversation going for another 30 minutes or so.
Next robot.
Well, I'm obviously here for wacky shenanigans. So
of course, yeah.
Here's my question about porn. You ever, because I like thumbnail sites. Now, there's a big controversy. First of all, if you haven't had the porn fight with your friends, you got to have it, people. Get on and have the what's your favorite site? Do that to someone you don't know super well, but you know okay, and you will be best friends in 30 seconds with that person. And you're clicking around and you're just like, "All right, I'm going to go with some old favorites," right? And then you click on something, you're like, "Oh," you click on something and you're like, "Oh, my whole life is different now. That's a part of me." I'm one of those people now forever. I gotta buy a book, and then you're angry about it. You're Googling, you're like, rope and chicken suits. And you're mad at the website. You're like, why would you? Now I got so many props to buy.
So, what's your favorite porn site?
Oh, so here's the problem. I can't say. I always love to do that, but I can't say that because it instantly gives away everything I'm into. Like my favorite porn site is the literal equivalent of like chickensuitandropes.com, and people are just, and you got to ease in. You got to be like, "Oh, I really like XTube," and people are like, "Oh man, I like," and then you can sort of eat. But I'm just like chickensuitandropes.com, and they're like, "Oh, all right. Well, I have to go throw up in the bathroom of this Buffalo Wild Wings where your wife brought us for a mutual friend date." So I've ruined so much. My wife has so many wonderful, sweet, normal friends. and I can't. I can't have a conversation for 30 seconds at this point in my adult life. I was riding my baby sister. My baby sister is 14 years old. She's going to high school this year. She's so excited for 9th grade. And I was trying to think of any term except because I can straight up fuck myself. Right? Because I was like, oh. And so he does this to me I want to say because I can straight up fuck myself. And I can't think of it. And I stare at my poor sister for 7 minutes where I'm just like, because, you know, me, I could. Who cares when? Because I could straight up fuck myself, Lily. That's why I could straight up fuck myself. That's what I say now.
You're 14. You know the word fuck.
You get it. Come on.
Right. I don't know if I've told this story on this show or not before. I may have in one of the sex episodes, but I'll say it again because it's funny. Speaking of that, like talking about the right things and the right group of friends. So, like, you know, I used to play in bands and we would tour and, like, you know, obviously mostly not even out to myself at that point. So ostensibly this was 7 guys in a van for hours and hours and hours at a time, making a cross-country drive, playing music. And so, like, obviously sex is going to come up. And, like, that's just a thing that's going to happen, right? And so, you know, discussion questions happen. And somebody has the brilliant idea to ask, like, so, like, what's the craziest thing you're into sexually? And
you really want to know this?
My first thought was, holy shit, I have to answer this last. Because, like...
Absolutely. Because then everyone just has questions for you. It turns into a weird Q&A for you.
Well, no, it's not even that. I just had to figure out, like, whatever level their stuff was on, I was going to pick my thing that was on that same level.
Right, absolutely. You got to match it. Because you know you're gonna get an Ari in the car who makes you feel super awkward. The Ari in the car is going to be like kissing on the mouth. And you're going to be like, all right, Ari in the car. All right. Yeah, never mind. I had a video of me and Toucan Sam that I had animated by this Korean studio that didn't know it wasn't for Comedy Central, but fine. Yeah, kissing on the face. Ari in the car, whoever you are.
And so the funny thing is, people start talking, and, like, I'm not going to give away anyone's story here, but let's just say I was surprised at how unmundane the things were that I was hearing.
Oh.
So, except for our bass player, when it gets to our bass player, he's like, I just like getting blowjobs. I don't know what the fuck's wrong with you guys.
Dude, there's always an Ari in the car. There's always an Ari and they always end up going last, no matter what. You can be like, hey, let's do the least weird thing. And the Ari in the car is like, dude, I'm going to talk about blowjobs. I'm going to go there today. And meanwhile, your friend Frank is like, so I'm wearing her like a hat, right? And she at this point has lost all use of her legs. She's pedaling away. Right, it's basically a chicken fight with no opponent, and Ari in the car is like, all right, this blowjob story's probably gonna top it.
Yeah, that was a pretty crazy time.
Whoa.
My jaw got a little sore from holding it open. That was a tough time.
Ow.
I love the fact that Ari in the car is a new thing I have to add to my vocabulary. I'm so excited about this.
I love that everybody always assumes I'm super innocent. Like, this is funny. I like it.
So you're not?
Those are secrets. Those are not. That's not for public consumption.
They knock over the camera and it pans over and Zach is just chained to a wall covered in like whip scars. They just sit it back up again. Sorry. Anyways, vanilla. Woohoo!
The safe word is banana. I love you. Shut up.
They can say banana. You're already playing too safe.
Oh my God. Oh, God. Wow. This went off the rails real fast.
You knew this was... I could tell already because I was listening to the Matt and Seth conversation on the bus ride, and I was like, oh, they're the big brothers of Atheist. I'm on this new kick about, like, I'm on this new kick about, instead of taking down bad ideas in atheism, one of the things that I really want to start focusing my attention on in this new year is promoting the good ideas in atheism.
Yeah.
It's just like not ignoring the bad, because I think ignoring the bad sort of comes part and parcel with that, like, we're just reasonable folks who disagree on whether or not Ari's a chick trying to get attention, right? And
I also disagree on that sometimes.
Right. But you're allowed to. You're allowed to. You don't run Skeptic Magazine. So
shit.
Fuck, repeating Nazi
propaganda.
For your job,
I'm sure.
Right, yeah.
So, and like, I think that is a part of it, is the like, oh, ignore it and I'll go away. And I think that is a problem. But I think one of the other problems is that we do lack the perspective to step back and be like, I can walk out on the street right now and be like, hey, who's Dave Rubin? And they'll be like, the guy who invented the sandwich? And I'm like, right, you have no idea.
Right.
And if you YouTube Atheist, I wrote this in a blog the other day, and I said it very casually. I was like, if you YouTube Atheist, you find all these anti-SJW channels, and that's all it is. And I was like, well, wait a second. I YouTubed Atheist, and I got Matt and Seth. Now, I got some people who I'm not fans of as well, but I also got Matt and Seth. And the truth of the matter is, like, Matt and Seth have consistently put out great content that is about the real problems of empowered actors in the world, all while never turning to call out, without creating feuds between the bad actors, without making people feel unwelcome in the community, and acting on those humanistic ideas. And that's what's really amazing about those two, is, they have the hard conversations because they're professional conversation havers, right? And they have them in real ways. They're not just like, all right, so today I'm going to chuckle along with a Nazi. So black people,
right.
Huh? Yoigles.
Well,
right?
and I think the other thing too is that it goes deeper than, because a lot of times the conversation you hear in atheism is like, well, let's just talk about how bad Pascal's wager is for the 5 billionth time. Isn't that interesting? It goes deeper than that, and I think that's the thing that I appreciate about what they do too.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, what they do is they embody those humanist ideas. They are inclusive. They are intersectional. They're incredibly brave, too. Because you got to remember, these guys have huge platforms, and for them, the hate mail is magnified. And I remember when Seth first started to talk about social justice, the sheer volume of hate mail that just poured on him. And look, Seth is a fucking rock, right? Seth was just like, milk chocolate voice, I don't know. And they're literally,
right.
Yeah, I think there was one episode where he was like, I could tell you're all mad at me, and I don't fucking care. You know what? Right. I'm just going to speak into a different dimension. Like a hole opens up, and it's like, your grandchild just heard me say hello. You made me do that. I didn't want to hurt. And I think Matt are the same way. So, for me, one of my major goals in the coming year and years is to continue to call out bad ideas, which is easy and fun, and I'm in a unique position of privilege to do so because of the size of my platform, and also because I am backed up by two very serious, smart co-hosts who stop me from saying stupid crap, right? Because we're all pretty aware that, like, there would have been a go punch a Nazi episode of the Scathing Atheist if I didn't have Noah and Heath. And then on top of that, Thomas to be like, Eli, you can't. Eli, you got to think about your opinions. I was like, no, I'm pretty sure.
Right.
I've been very lucky in that sense. And so the calling out bad ideas is sort of what I've gotten a little bit of like a name for in our tiny, corner. But one of the things that I want to be known for is promoting the people who are doing the good work. And that's why I'm so happy to be here doing this, because one of the things that I do most often in the serious conversations is I talk about your show, and I talk about you all specifically, because I'll tell you, I don't think I have changed anyone's mind with facts, because I don't think it's possible. But I'll tell you, I send them over to the Gaytheist, and I get these 9-page emails about their high school experience, and they break through. They break through in a real way that they never would with me being like, well, here are the problems with this doctrine of blur. They're just like, boring, right? If they were smart enough to think their way out of those ideas, they would have. But you need those feels to absorb those facts, and that's why I think what y'all do is so important. Not just now where we're fundraising, and that link is
fbbgive.org.
fbbgive.org, not just now when you're doing this, which y'all do all the time, right? You're constantly doing a fundraiser or charity or donating to the other, giving your time to the other as a show in a way that I admire greatly, but also just, I always talk about, when I talk about the why I take the hate mail and why I spend so much time talking about social justice when I could just be the dick joke guy, and no one would ever be like, how come he never talks about social justice? Because everyone knows I'm a comedian, and it's because I imagine that trans kid, that queer kid, that person of color, that person who feels left out by the community, and the idea that I can go all right, are you ready for a cry? I'm going to send you, and I send them a link for Atheist, and just that kid gets to hear from you, you are loved, that little thing you do at the end of this show, it is literally life-saving. It's literally life-saving. And the fact that all I have to do is come on and be like, so when you're doing porn comparisons with your friends, and he's like, and I honestly can't fathom laying yourself bare in the way that you folks do so often. And it's mind-bogglingly heroic to me. I would absolutely be a nervous wreck. My Twitter account was too much, and I had to delete it off my phone. There was too many times when my wife was like, so I'm thinking about having a baby, and I was like, 1 second, I'm going to get him with this one.
Right. Well, and honestly, I think that's a great thing, because obviously it's important to call out the bad stuff, right? Because the people who are toxic, the people who are doing the bad stuff, we want to try to push those people out so they have less influence, so they can do less harm. But I do think there is a focus a lot of times on that, and not the concurrent focus on we shouldn't be listening to these people, but here are the people we should be listening to. Because talking about YouTube, for example, we can talk about what a cesspool YouTube is when it comes to atheism, and in a lot of ways it is, right? I mean, there's no denying that. But Steve Shives is on YouTube, and ContraPoints is on YouTube, and so there's good stuff happening.
Not all YouTube atheists,
right? But I don't think there's enough of this person is doing stuff that we want to hear. So I actually think that's a really great idea. And I think it might be, because I think that's what turns some people off. Because there are a lot of times I think people get into it with an innocent ignorance that maybe comes from a place of privilege, or maybe just comes from a place of, I just figured out I'm an atheist. I heard there's a movement for that. Let's see what that's all about. And they get in and they just have no idea about any of this stuff. And immediately what they hear about is all the terrible stuff that's happening, right? And I think there was a post that we were commenting on, Eli, where you were talking about, you gave a talk to a group of people, and almost everyone in the room was an atheist, but almost no one in the room wanted anything to do with the movement because of stuff like that. And I get it, honestly, I've been struggling with that myself. There have been 2 or 3 times where I've considered stopping the Atheist Manifesto for those reasons. Not in a super serious way. I was never ready to pull the trigger and do it. But, there were a couple of times where I was thinking is this a sinking ship? Do I just need to move on and concentrate on my other podcast?
Right. At what point am I the guy who's in the KKK for the cookouts?
Right.
I don't know what these fellers are talking about with the hoods and the burning. I'm here for some good baby back ribs. That's what I was promised. That's why I'm here. And at a certain point, that is a real worry, is you're just right. Am I associating myself with a movement that has negative consequences?
Right.
But I think Seth and Matt are right in that it is a movement's growing pains. And it's something I've written quite a bit about lately, is why specifically I feel like atheism is going through those movement pains in a way that it's a lot more public and a lot more visceral to the people in it than the way, say, the Democratic Party has gone through those growing pains. And it's because of a lack of structures in place. It's because we're a movement based on rebellion by definition. Mm-hmm. So that means that people are going to be contrarians as a general rule, and it's the red pill effect. Funny as that is to say, but the first part of atheism for everyone I've ever known wasn't I suppose God isn't real. I'll have a sandwich. You're like, guys, guess what I just figured out, right? You're like, it's that like, whoa, what else isn't true? And if someone who introduced you, and again, this is why I admire Matt so much, is because how many McGillion people have told me that watching Matt or calling into Matt was their entree to atheism. And for their entree to atheism not to have twisted into this like, now, hey, welcome to the atheist experience. Now I want to take a call from a feminist. Is there anyone who wants to take a call? Right? Never. It's never, and there's a tremendous amount of money to be made to take that short dollar. Right. We're realizing now it's a short dollar too. And that's the other thing. If you're starting to despair, if you look at, whatever his name's as the crazy Canadian guy who, if we all cared about atheism, would be a total joke, but he's transphobic in a slightly smarter way, so he makes $1 million a month on Patreon, whatever his name is. Right. Dr.
Jordan Peterson.
Right. Him. Couldn't even
literally
find out.
$50,000 a month on Patreon.
Right. But so there's a couple of things about that. First of all, the Patreon system and the way it displays money does not depend on real dollars. So that is something that people should be aware of.
Right. That's true.
And he has people with a vested interest in making him look like he makes a lot of money, even if he doesn't. And he's not known as a particularly scrupulous person. Secondly, clock's ticking, right? Oh, she was going to go stop boats. And then where did it all go?
Right.
The money's gone. And where did the Daily Stormer go? Let me check it out. That Daily Stormer, it's gone.
Right.
It's gone. And that short dollar, that clock's ticking. That clock's ticking. Because look.
Free market, baby.
Right. It's that free market. And here's the problem. Look, they're never, the straw man is, they're coming for you. Right? They're Google's coming for your jobs. No, nobody's coming for you, but those college students are growing up. Those college students, those Yale students, those yelling Yale students. Who'd have thought the kids that went to Yale would turn out to be wealthy and want to support charities and causes they believed into? Oh, no, the internet trolls, they moved out of mom and dad's basement and all of a sudden the money goes away. And the short dollar is dying based on that free market that they only care about when it's homophobic bakers. But it's also dying because the screaming college kids are the grown-ups. Every year, that class of screaming college guys, can you believe that I said, look, I want to take a kike on a bike because I like Jewish people, because I like them. And then they shouted at me. They raised their voices. And I just don't know what, in my day, no one ever shouted. They just said, pretty please don't say the K word. And it was very nice. Everyone was nice to me. And now that every year they enter the workplace, every year they become the teachers, they become the faculty. And I see it even in the own limited work that I do with universities. I walk in and I see my classmates in casting rooms. I see my classmates on Broadway stages. And I know their politics because we're still Facebook friends. And I'm like, ooh, a little hard to work in this industry if last week you were holding a tiki torch. Right? And that is a really interesting transformation that if one ever starts to despair, really helps me, is to recognize how short and stupid a dollar that is. And that every generation has gone through this, right? Everyone – I was talking to my cousins about this because I was at a wedding this weekend, and I was sort of doing the like they smear the anti-social justice, all the money they make, and my cousin goes, "Oh, well, it's like Glenn Beck and those guys," and I was like, "What do you mean?" And he was like, "Oh, well, when I was your age, like the big news was that Bill O'Reilly was making $1 million a year. The big news was that Glenn Beck was making all this money. The big news was that radio guy whose name I never remember."
Rush
terrible.
Limbaugh.
Rush Limbaugh, right.
Yeah.
Limbaugh had all these listeners. I remember when the passing phase was, I can't believe how many listeners they have. And now we look at them and they're a joke, right? They're fired in disgrace. They're desperately trying to pretend that they weren't conservatives before, or they're gone from the public eye, right? You got Glenn Beck, like, I say, I'm having this cappuccino. I've gotten all sorts of woke, right? You've got Bill O'Reilly, who's just sitting in his mansion throwing darts at a board of women he harassed. And who's the last time you've heard from Rush Limbaugh? And I'm not saying that these aren't serious characters or that we don't need to push back, but when we get caught up in the despair, it is important to remember, like, how quickly that is changing. How quickly that has changed even in the time since I've entered the community as a voice, right? What it meant 2 years ago versus what it means today.
Well, in the thing that I always tell people, because Trav was asking, like how do you keep going? Because a lot of times you see this stuff and you do like, is this even worth it? And the conclusion that I've come to is like all the people who are doing the terrible stuff, the people who are saying the awful things, the people who are like, excusing racism and homophobia and transphobia and all of that kind of stuff. I don't do this show for them. You know what I mean? So why would I base my decision about what I do on them? Because this isn't for them. This is for the kids that you were talking about before. The people who email us saying, man, you said this thing and it really opened my eyes. Or you said this thing and it really helped me. Or, I figured out my identity along with your show. Or, the person who told me that, he was going to law school and he decided he wanted to be a civil rights lawyer because of the show. Stuff like that. Those are the people that we do this show for. So, and this was actually, this was literally last night. I was thinking this as I was reading through all of these things and just thinking through, how many people who have been given huge platforms who turn out to be harassers or who turn out to be people who excuse and ignore bigotry and even promote bigotry. And I just think like there's this parade of terrible stuff happening and it seems to be growing, and like I said before, at what point do you disassociate from that? But the point is, again, I don't do it for them. So like, that's not to say that we shouldn't fight those things. That's not to say that we should ignore that and not take any action based on that. Like, obviously we need to oppose those things. We need to do what we can, to fight back against those things. But that's not the entirety of our focus, right? The entirety of our focus is, one, helping to educate and advocate, and two, helping people who are queer, who are trans, who are atheist, feel not alone. I think it was after the first or second episode of this show 2 years ago, I started getting emails from people about like, I'm queer and I don't feel like there's anyone I can talk to that's not super religious and not going to shove God down my throat when I'm talking to them about the problems that I have. It's obviously, I figured it's a thing that's relevant to me. I'm probably not the only person in the world who cares about this. And I'm probably not the only person in the world who recognizes that there needs to be a space for queer and trans people who don't believe in God. Or there needs to be a space where, allies can come in and feel like they're not going to be talked down to, and that we're going to educate, we're going to advocate, we're going to be real, but we're not going to talk down to and belittle people and say like, oh, that's a silly question, you shouldn't ask that, you're a terrible person, but I'm continually, we're on a month-long hiatus before this because of my surgery. And I had planned on releasing a few episodes after the last one we actually did, so I didn't actually announce the hiatus on the show. And obviously, not everyone who listens to the show follows me on Facebook. I know that just because of the numbers. And I started getting messages from people like, hey, I noticed you didn't put out an episode this week. And I'm
where's
like,
my fix?
Yeah, right. And I'm like, oh my God, like people are still paying attention to this. Like it still matters. And I'm like, again, you get in that pit of despair, and I think, I don't know, I have to believe probably anybody who does something like this has gotten to that point at one time or another where you're just like, God, like, am I still doing this for the right reasons? Is it making a difference? Does it matter to people? Am I wasting my time? That kind of stuff. And when I step back and try to look at things objectively, I kind of feel silly for asking those questions because I still get those Facebook messages and I still get those emails from people. And I remember all the conversations that we've had, all the friendships that I've made, all of the cool places I've got to go, like all of that kind of stuff. So like objectively, I think those are silly questions to ask. But obviously, like when you're in your feelings, I think, everybody gets to that point at one time or another. And that was honestly, that was the reason that I was so excited to do this for Foundation Beyond Belief, because what we're doing is kind of at the core of why I think we do what we do, right? Because we want to help people, especially when bad things are happening and there's a need. If we can identify a group like Foundation Beyond Belief that, I trust the people in charge. I trust that if I give them money, that it's going to go to where they say it's going to go.
Right.
And it's going to go to the cause. And so it's like with the parade of awfulness, it's legitimate to talk about that. It's legitimate to push against that. It's legitimate to fight against that. But, it's the same reason we do good news episodes. Because there needs to be that other side of the conversation. In the midst of all of that, we need to understand that like we can still do things to help people. I'll get the total from Jennifer at Foundation Beyond Belief probably in about 3 minutes or so where we're at. But I mean, at this point, I know we've collectively raised over $2,000 to do this, and that's incredible. I was nervous about setting the goal at $1,000 because I'm just like I don't know, right? Like, I have a bit of a platform. It's not massive, but people listen to the show, so I'm just like I don't know what we can do. Like, it's like a thing. If you're going to do a fundraiser, you got to have a goal, right? Like that's what you have to do. And I'm just like, let's say 1,000, and that makes me really nervous. But people come through because people care, and that's a thing that I think we need to be reminded of a lot. Is that is that there are people that care, and there are people who are ready to help, in small ways and in big ways, and whatever capacity they can. And I think that's the thing. It's the spiel that I give all the time, right? Like, you don't have to have a massive platform. You don't have to give over your entire life to the cause. You can give $5 to a fundraiser. You can share a Facebook post that makes a really good point about something. You can leave words of support on somebody's Facebook page. Like, that's all activism, and it's all important. And, I feel like if we all spent like 5 or 10 minutes a day doing that, like, I think our problems would disappear. Like, I think people get discouraged because they feel like they can't, they feel like they can't do anything. And to be honest, even I feel that way, even with a show with a decent sized platform and friends with even bigger platforms and having the privilege to speak at conventions in front of hundreds of people. Like, it still feels like too big for me, and I know there are probably people who could draw thousands of people to events and they still feel like what they're doing isn't enough. Like, I think that's a natural thing, right? Because we do all this work, we put in all this effort, and bad things still happen. And especially since the election, I've been through that cycle a million times. Like, I feel like what I'm doing doesn't matter. And it's always like right around that time. It's like, it's not enough to make you doubt, your disbelief in the supernatural, but it's just like, it seems like a weird coincidence. Like, almost every time man,
maybe I'm being punished.
Well, no, it's like and every time I get in that state of mind, I get a Facebook message from someone or an email from someone saying like, oh man, that last episode you posted, that, like, I really learned something from that. That really meant a lot to me. That really helped me, and that's, that's the stuff that I live for. That's why we do what we do.
Yeah, that's the thing that I think keeps me from going crazy is honestly having low expectations for what I can do. That sounds really pessimistic, but if I got out there thinking like I'm going to change the entire world and society's going to be better, of course I'm going to be disappointed every time because I'm just an individual. Like, right. No one individual can do that, no matter how powerful or rich or famous they are. So, when I first started at Atheist, I was like thinking to myself, like, what's my goal in this whole situation? Like, what do I want to get out of this? And I really just thought to myself, I just want to help one person. And so every time I get a message, it's been dozens and dozens of messages from people saying everything from like, you help me feel less alone, or my kid is trying you for making the world a safer place for them, or just I learned something that I didn't know from something that you said or your blog post or something you wrote on Facebook. Every time that happens, I've already, exceeded my goal tremendously because that keeps happening over and over. So, yeah, I'm naturally kind of a pessimist, so I'm just like, there's not really a whole lot I can do, so I'm just going to do my little part, which, it's better than doing nothing at all and just sitting there and moping and saying nothing's ever going to get better. Well, I can't make the whole society better. I can't make the whole world better, but I can make maybe somebody's day a little better. Yeah.
Well, and that's, I always compare like any creative thing that I do, to being in a band because I was in bands for 10 years. So it's almost like that thing where, you join a band, you hope that you're going to be a rock star, you want to play stadiums in front of millions of people. And I think aside from the most arrogant people, I think most people in the back of their heads, they know that's a pipe dream, right? Like even a lot of people who make their living, they sort of in their head wish it could be more, but know that that's not really an attainable thing. Like that happens to such a small handful of people. And that was kind of the attitude that I had when I started the show. It was like, I'm going to do this. It'd be really cool if a bunch of people paid attention, but like, it's probably not going to happen. And it's turned into a thing. And I think it's amazing. And I think it's a testament, not necessarily to what we do, but I think it speaks to the community, that the community is that interested. Because I had such a fight in my local LGBT community when I would bring up anything related to atheism or, secularism, anything like that. Like, I honestly thought that starting this podcast, I was going to have to fight with a lot of people to get this conversation to happen and to get people to talk about these issues. And I am continuously blown away by the willingness that people have, and people with huge platforms, the willingness that people have, like, what can I do to help you? What can I do to push this conversation forward? Like, I am constantly blown away by that. And that's a thing, kind of bringing the conversation back around to what we were talking about. That's why we do what we do, right? And that's what we have to keep reminding ourselves of, is that those things can still happen. So, yeah. I just got the
and that's why we're great.
I just got the final fundraising total from Jennifer. As of right now, we are at $2,810. So we are going to end up once the broadcast is over and I add in the $200 from the Atheist Manifesto, we are going to break 3,000 for this 4 hours.
We didn't make the Eli looking hurricane goal. I'm kind of disappointed. See, I should have had lower expectations. See,
so, look,
I did this to myself.
6 minutes left. Chuck in $3,000. Someone.
And
no big deal.
Yeah, well, and your hour was the biggest, Eli, at $800. Yeah. So.
I dedicate this to Citation Needed, the undiscovered gem of podcasting. Ooh.
Awesome. All right. Well,
not a conflict of interest whatsoever.
Well, this has been awesome, Eli. I appreciate you taking the time. I know you just came back from a huge road trip. You're probably real tired, and I'm super stoked that you decided to hang out with us anyways. Very much.
Thank y'all for having me.
And that, my friends, is going to do it for this very long, unexpected, and last-minute episode of the Atheist Manifesto. I cannot thank everyone enough for agreeing to come on at last-minute notice. Literally had the idea for this Friday night, reached out to some people, organized most of it yesterday, and here we are Sunday night doing this, and way more successful than I imagined it would be. We're going to keep the broadcast going during our outro for about another 5 minutes or so. So please check out fbbgive.org. Give what you can. Foundation Beyond Belief is an amazing organization with some amazing people, and this it's sorely needed. You can find the show on Facebook at facebook.com/theGatheistManifesto. You can email us at thegatheistmanifesto@gmail.com. I'm on Twitter at GatheistCali. You can find the show on Twitter at TheGatheists. And I hope Ari prepared a sweet outro.
How much money did you say that we made? It was about $2,800. Is that right?
It's going to end up being over $3 once we throw in our
okay. So here are, in honor of the money that we raised, 3,000 ways that you can contact me.
Oh my God.
All right. Number 1, you can email me at aristillman4@gmail.com. Number 2, howlers. I accept those. Number 3, trans psychicness. That's a thing. Number 4, you can find me on Facebook at Ari Stillman. Number 3,820. Oh wait, no, that's too many. Number 126. I was skipping ahead a little bit for time.
Right. It's fine.
Is that you can write me a letter, and then the last one That's number 3,000 over 3,000 is that you can buy me on SJW Circle Jerk, and this is getting out of hand, and send me a puppy. And this one was great. I loved it.
And if you want to support this show and the activism we do, you can head to patreon.com/theGatheist Make a per episode donation as little as $1 per episode. And if that doesn't work, you can head over to iTunes, give us a 5-star review. That helps us move up in the ratings and get heard by more people. Before we go, I want you to know that if you're lost, you're hurting, you're scared, if you feel like no one cares and no one understands, you need to know there's a community out here that loves you, cares for you, knows that you're capable of amazing things, and that you are worthy of love. If you're struggling, please don't be afraid to reach out. Until next time, friends, this is the Gatheist Manifesto.
Life can be hard. Things can get rough. Stay on your guard and protect the good stuff. Sometimes we all feel like we've had enough. Don't wanna spend my short time feeling down, or go through my days getting used to a frown. So I will express my anger, the credit is due, but it won't take away from my gratitude. There's nowhere to hide when you live in a cage. You feel young inside, but on the outside you age. And everyone lied when they told you there's the next stage. 'Cause one day my memories will all be gone. Not a single one of all who I love will go on. And I'm afraid at the end, yeah, I don't want it all too, but it won't take away from my gratitude. When the world is on fire, down come the rains. Truth and desire help us overcome our pains. And when we take it higher, only mystery remains. And it's almost too good to be real. And while it's hard to define the transcendence we feel, I don't believe in a great power to say thank you to, but it won't take away from my gratitude. And after the rain has washed everything away, well, here comes the rainbow to brighten up your day. In contrast with the gray, confusion runs deep, and it's hard to know what's right. Sometimes you can't sleep and you get lonely at night, but you decide what you keep, and the morning brings a new light. I'd rather find out what's real than deny the truth. May be hard, but it's better than living a lie. So before disaster strikes and everything I've built comes unglued, I'll be reveling and dancing in my gratitude.